All right, listeners, I think you know that we are part of the Radiotopia network, which is basically a network built on the idea that you should support the most creative, independent audio makers around. No one, and I mean no one, embodies the Radiotopia ethos more than Benjamin Walker and his show Theory of Everything. Benjamin, who I've known for a long time, has been making beautiful, personal, sprawling audio documentaries for decades that help us understand the very strange world we live in. And now he has a new series called Not All Propaganda is Art. The new series goes back to the 1950s, when Western security agencies like the CIA paid artists, writers, and intellectuals to fight the cultural Cold War.
The CIA funds were free. I mean, no one was told what to say.
Gloria Steinem, activist who sees the CIA as a sort of enlightened pal or rich uncle, there is another viewpoint.
Look, if you're listening to this show, I know you like secret histories. I know you like a mix of culture and politics and shadowy figures. So what are you waiting for? Not All Propaganda is Art from Benjamin Walker. You can find it now wherever you listen or at theoryofeverythingpodcast.com. This episode is brought to you by Progressive, where drivers who save by switching save nearly $750 on average. Quote now at progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates, national average 12-month savings of $744 by new customers surveyed who saved with Progressive between June 2022 and May 2023. Potential savings will vary. Hello and welcome to This Day in Esoteric Political History from Radiotopia. My name is Jody Avergan. This day, March 1st, 1992, New Orleans, as it does every early March, is getting ready for Mardi Gras. The routes are being finalized, the costumes prepared, the various crews that perform during the festivities, planning everything that they'll need to plan for the marches. This was the 136th annual Mardi Gras, but something was different in 1992, and that's because this was the first Mardi Gras since a local city council ordinance passed banning discrimination among the various crews. Mardi Gras crews are basically the fundamental building block of the celebration, these social groups and civic organizations that get together to do floats and coordinate costumes, and generally, crews had been segregated. But now a unanimous city council vote said that any crew that refused to integrate would, quote, be denied city services and parade permits and would require jail time and fines. So that's what we're talking about here. The first integrated, at least in a legal sense, and we'll get into all the very complicated ways that this actually played out, the very first legally mandated integrated Mardi Gras. Here to discuss that, as always, are Nicole Hemmer of Columbia and Kellie Carter-Jackson of Wellesley. Hello there.
Hello, Jody.
Hey there.
And we're very pleased to welcome our special guest for this episode in New Orleans right now, Oliver Thomas, longtime New Orleans city councilman, also poet, actor in the series Treme, radio host, lots of other stuff, and a fixture in New Orleans for many, many years. So, Councilman Thomas, thank you for joining us for this.
Thank you. I do stuff, right?
Yeah.
So, thank you all.
Were you on the city council in 92 or was...
No, I was a legislative assistant. I was just leaving the city council to go to work for, I think it was the DGD of the federal government with HUD. But I was around. I was a Dorothy May Taylor ordinance to desegregate Mardi Gras, man. That was wow. You're talking about a trying time in our city, and a big time in our city yet. But I had been a legislative assistant under Jim Singleton, who was one of Dorothy Taylor's best friends for years, working as an analyst and a legislative analyst for the city council.
And Dorothy Taylor was, she sponsored this ordinance and the first black woman on the city council, right?
Yeah, first African-American woman on city council, elected at large. She was alternating council president. I think she was the first black female in the legislature.
Yeah.
30 years ago. She was the first of a lot of firsts, not only as a woman, but as an African-American here in the state of Louisiana. And of course, was the first ever move to desegregate Mardi Gras for Carnival.
Wow. Is it me? But I was like, the 90s, isn't this a little late for integration? It feels like this should be coming much, much earlier. But in fact, it's not. Can you tell us why it's taken so long to have integration during Mardi Gras?
We shall overcome. We shall overcome. Someday. They didn't say what day.
There's no time for
That's
it.
right.
Come on, Kelly.
They kept it vague for a
They
reason.
didn't say one day. They left that part blank, right? This is like someday. So someday was 1992, right? Maybe, right?
Yeah.
No, I think, that's probably one of the mysteries, not just mystery, one of the challenges of America and our democracy and our Constitution, especially when you talk about women and then Black folk, right? It's like each year before and after that, it's like, oh, wow, now, why didn't it happen decades ago or years ago? So the same thing applies to that. And why didn't it happen? Because people didn't allow it to happen. They weren't ready for it to happen.
I think it's also worth taking a snapshot of Louisiana at that point in time, because we're talking about 1992, the year before David Duke had been a candidate for the governor of Louisiana. Talk about throwbacks. Yeah.
Strong candidate. I think he got over 40% of the vote. This is below the Mason-Dixon line, right?
Yeah.
And it is Louisiana. Our culture may be different. We may speak differently from most other people. Our food and our flavor may be different. And we may be the most Afrocentric city in America, even with all our light-skinned Black folk. But we still in the South.
Yeah.
But, you read accounts of the time, and the New York Times at least sort of said the defeating Duke had been a moment where it maybe felt like Black Louisianans and white Louisianans got together to defeat Duke. And now this Mardi Gras, is maybe bringing out some of the divisions again and we should get into the fallout, but, obviously this passes unanimously in the city council, but it was very divisive in terms of how is this going to actually play out in practice.
Well, the crazy thing about it, right, and it's interesting, Dorothy Taylor, the attack on her, after she initiated this, not only came from white and staunch conservatives, right, and those folk who were rooted in that tradition, even though Mardi Gras was its festive time, the attacks on her came from our own community, because it was said that it would be an effort to destroy Mardi Gras. Most of our folk work in the service industry. Many people turned on her. It ended her political career. Basically, she was right, and she was treated wrong. So it was a very divisive time in our community. We had come together as a collective to defeat racists and the Grand Wizard of the KKK, but we couldn't come together to defeat Jim Crow practices and Jim Crow policy.
But can you give us a little context about krewes and sort of how they're organized and how much they reflect other racial divisions and dynamics?
Yeah, well, krewes were private clubs, from Rex to Colas to Moments to Sparta to Venus to today Femme Fatale to, of course, the great, what I believe is one of the great carnival plays of all time, of Zulu, and Endymion and Bacchus and Orpheus, and on. But early on, parades and private social and pleasure clubs were banded together around race.
It's interesting how, race is so much the third rail in Black and white communities when it comes to integration. I think that as much as we don't talk about how much white people were clinging to their white supremacy, we also don't talk about the idea that a lot of Black people preferred the segregation or the separate spaces of not having the white gaze or the white, integration in some spaces.
Yeah, well, Kellie, many noted Black nationalists believe that integration actually costs us our economy, our families, and many of our schools and our social and economic independence. So many academics and African-American intellectuals, if you look at some of the downward trends in many of the social ills, are associated with what happened with and around integration.
You mentioned the Krewe of Zulu, and I think that the history of how some of these all-black krewes developed is really important too, because they grew out in a response in some ways to Jim Crow and to segregation as mutual aid societies and ways to celebrate blackness, and particularly with the colorism in New Orleans, like to celebrate dark black skin and have that be a black is beautiful moment, even in an era before that was a political slogan.
Well, as much as I said earlier, with most Afrocentric culture, even with all our light-skinned people, there was a caste system in black society. We hear tales of the paper bag. You had to pass the paper bag test to get into some quote-unquote Creole or black clubs. They were segregated by complexion even within the African-American community. So, in New Orleans, that's a real thing. It's like, I'm a light-skinned person named Thomas from the Night Wall, right? Typically, that wouldn't necessarily be accepted in Creole culture. I didn't have a French last name. My father was black man. And I didn't come from that community, so there was a time politically and socially, there was a comment here that said you could be the right color, but the wrong kind. It's like I think it's Michael Graham's Archive of People, that's book. That he wrote years ago. That's been prominent within our community too.
Yeah. Something you see a lot, not just in New Orleans, but all throughout the country, especially in New England, in places where you have like this black bourgeoisie. Those ideas about colorism, I think, are a real aspect of it, especially in social gatherings. There's nothing more social than Mardi Gras. And I think you get to see a lot of that on display, for better or for worse.
No doubt.
So can we talk a little about how this played out in 92? And I don't know if you have memories of the time but because as a law, right, as an anti-discrimination law, it had proved to be very tricky because, most of the krewes were organized, as we were saying, along sort of more nuanced, private, social dynamics. And it's not like they had charters that said, we only accept certain kinds of people. And so this decision was generally kind of mocked, or people said it's going to open up more problems than it's actually going to solve. But at the same time, and I don't know if you remember this, but a number of prominent krewes boycotted Mardi Gras that year.
No, some of them still don't parade today
because of this.
Wow.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, they shut it down. Now they still have their regalia and their balls, and some people have their crowning privately, but they don't use public streets. They don't use public resources, and they don't use public spaces in places.
Wow.
The key to the ordinance was, if you utilize public resources, then you could not integrate it against anybody who was a member of the public. Kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
Do you think that the backlash was also because it was punitive, also because you could face jail time if you violated the tenets of this law? Like, would it still have that same sort of response if there wasn't, a fine?
Martha Taylor wasn't out. She didn't play. She was a soft civil rights figure. Her and the late Aretha Castle Hill, they're both late now. With two women. We had a matriarchal society where a lot of men were up front. Reverend Avery Alexander, Dutch Morielli, too. But there were some real strong women in the background, engineering and organizing. Dorothy Taylor was one of them. So for her, that level of discrimination warranted that level of punishment. Now, if was it too much, it played out in a real public and private war. I actually think, it's just me, that it contributed to her demise.
Right.
In many cases, in some cases, I think it had an impact on her life.
Well, and it's interesting that there is this public outcry. There are calls to boycott Mardi Gras, and the law actually gets watered down. The ordinance gets watered down. They take away the jail time provision. They sort of soften the language about what discriminatory practices look like. And even then, you still have, as you were mentioning, like krewes that just don't show up.
Yeah, well, they didn't want to be forced to have to integrate their club, even minus the jail time or some of the extreme penalty. Of course, they had the right to do that, but they also could not use public streets and public facilities and public resources.
Do you think this ordinance has led to integration in a real sense? I mean, are there more integrated krewes now, and is that a result of this ordinance, or is that a result of other factors?
As the civil rights movement led to integration, in some areas, yeah, you have younger people now who just kind of migrated and kind of blend together in spite of, but Sunday's still the most segregated day in America. We socialize around a lot of things, go to college campuses, look at fraternities and sorority, how groups hang together at games or public events. Some of it's natural, you naturally go back to your krewe. But then we still haven't naturally migrated across racial lines. We're still not there, especially economically. And especially when you talk about academics and ideology, we still have a ways to go.
And there are some efforts to sort of support the ordinance by creating, I know that there's this sort of super krewe that's founded by Harry Connick Sr. and Jr. and some others that was formed as a specifically inclusive organization.
Right. No, Orpheus specifically, Harry Connick Jr. made this President Entertainment, here in New Orleans, who were very renowned for the music around the world. Their idea was, hey, man, look, let's break from this old tradition and do our own thing, right? And they did that, and it's represented, but still stuck in there. It's still some of the challenge. When you talk about where we are in terms of integration, our race today, I don't know that if it has the same thing to do with people from different ethnicities blending together. It's really deeper than that. The disparity gap in earnings between blacks and whites is 10% wider. There are statistics that say that African Americans probably earn less per capita or share in the national wealth less than they did 150 years ago. We celebrate black women with startups, but not the resources to stay up. African American men still lead the nation in terms of incarceration encounters with police. So when people ask the question, are we less segregated today? Then the other part of it is, let's look at the data in terms of how we live and our quality of life. Is that less segregated?
Yeah, it's also complicated too, because you wonder, even if all things were equal, economically, politically, would there still be a social comfort or a safetiness within segregation that people tend to still want to operate in these comfortable status quo spaces? The work of integration is really difficult.
Well, that all depends on who you sit around the dinner table with, who you worship with.
Yeah.
Who you watch the game with, who you make love to, who you trust.
Mm-hmm.
If you're in circles where those people look like people from different communities in those categories, you're good, because that's your life experience. One of the great examples I use is I played ball in college, and I had friends from other races that we played ball. But when we finished college, we went back home.
So on the list that you just gave, who you worship with, who you eat with, who do you celebrate Mardi Gras with, who do you party with? Where does that fit in? I mean, is it a force for genuine community, or will it?
Jody, now that's a heck of a question, right? Because the contradiction in that is, in the world, you party with everybody, right? But then what's the key? You go back home.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So when you talk about the mixture that day, oh, wow, man, it's a place you wish we could get to, take out some of the hedonism, some of that's cool, But that's a great point, though, because Mardi Gras is so confusing.
It's such a contradiction of space and ideas, but you're absolutely right. having been several times, and the energy that you feel around strangers, is just, it's contagious, and everyone is, happy and euphoric and probably high or drunk, but it's part of it.
It's like every now and then the thought, hey, white girl, you're going to hug me this night tomorrow, right? Oh, Mr. White Man, hey, wow, you actually gave me the bees that threw you. Vice versa, yeah, but no, Jody, when I think about that, man, it's like everybody just kind of like blends Mardi Gras, and then it's over, right?
Yeah.
But you make me think, man, is that not the power of racism and white superiority and social conditioning? Are we really conditioned, even after a festive occasion, hugging and loving each other, to go back to the table that was already set? That's Jody, you got me thinking now, man.
That's what this is about, right?
That's what we do.
Yeah, but I think that's why this law is so fascinating, because it's an attempt to draw a bright line around a thing that just has so many blurred lines. All right. Well, look, you keep thinking about that, and you figure it out, okay? And you keep us posted.
Solve the problem.
Yeah.
Solve it and get back to us.
They called me the fix-it guy.
Yeah, okay. But look, as we wrap up, we're recording this a little early, but the day that this episode comes out is the first day of Mardi Gras. So paint the picture for us. Your first night of Mardi Gras, what does it look like? Make us jealous.
Oh, I gotta start the night before, getting ready, right? Not being able to sleep that morning, preparing for what I'm gonna wear, what kind of comfortable shoes, how I'm gonna prepare the kids and the family. Do I separate from them at some point when I go to the Grammy part under the bridge? Now, for real, right? Because there's an underbelly, right? New Orleans is one of the most gloriously Grammy places in the world, right? And there's an underbelly from where to eat to who to hang with, and most people that tourists don't know about unless you connect, right? So do I get into the underbelly? How safe is it? For real, do I want to bring my I got a 12-year-old and a 5-year-old, man. I started over, right? Do I want to take them in the underbelly with me? But then there's the calculation, guys. How many coconuts I'm going to get? I'm thinking, right? Who needs me to get their coconuts poured from my mama, my sister, my auntie? So all of these things go into, do I want to make up my face at all? Or do I want people to know it's me acting a fool, right? So all of that, man, Jody, you got me. See, y'all asking questions that people don't ask. Because there is preparation and there's thought into this thing, man, that we do here that people don't really know about. It ain't just waking up, right? It's like, they don't put crease in jeans no more. Should I leave mine out, right? It's all of those kinds of things. Is my wife going to show her titties, Diane? I hope not, but my niece will, so do I look out the set? Do I have dark shades on, or it's Mardi Gras, so I can do a little debauchery. Yeah. So there's a lot of planning. Am I going to be able to lag? From Zulu Rex to the truck float? Do my shoes allow me to walk from Gallia Hall to under the bridge like I usually do? Is this old athletic injury with this meniscus? Is that going to give me a problem?
These are the things.
Yeah. These are all the things.
There's a whole lot of thought, whole lot of planning. But there's one thing, though, I know where I'm going to end up, on the couch sleep.
Eventually. That's where everyone ends up eventually.
Look, before COVID, right? My son is 5 now. Before COVID, we went to Mardi Gras. And my son is like, he's a New Orleans boy, right? He's straight Grammy, straight gutter, straight fun, right? At the end of the Mardi Gras that year, I think he was 3 there. Guess where he was? Laid out in the middle of the sidewalk like that. Kellie, Nicole, for real, we took pictures of him, right? He just stopped. He was like this.
I know, laid out.
Wow,
That is so
3-year-old.
funny. Oh man.
Stretched out.
I
Love
hope,
it.
I hope everyone has a chance to experience that and maybe party with you
Yeah.
in particular, because that sounds
Absolutely.
like a great long night. But look,
Yes.
seriously, thank you so much for
Thank you,
doing
guys.
this. This is really, really makes you think, and yeah, we
Yeah.
appreciate it.
No, well, thank you guys, man. What a blessing, man. And it was fun and thoughtful, and I appreciate you. Thank you.
All right, well, Oliver Thomas, City Councilman, thank you so much.
Peace out.
And Nicole Hemmer, thanks to you.
Thank you, Jody.
And Kellie, thanks to you.
My pleasure.
Go, Kellie. Love y'all.
Down in New Orleans where the blues was born, it takes a cool cat to blow a horn. On LaSalle and Rampart Street, the combos play with the mambo beat. The Mardi Gras mambo, 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 Mardi Gras mambo, 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 Mardi Gras mambo. Down in New Orleans.
Support for This Day in Esoteric Political History comes from Odoo. What is Odoo? Well, Odoo is the only software your business will ever need. Featuring a suite of integrated business applications, Odoo connects your business operations together so you can get more done in less time. Odoo has apps for everything: CRM, accounting, sales, HR, inventory, marketing, manufacturing, you name it, Odoo's got it. To learn more, visit odoo.com/thisday. That's odoo.com/thisday.
Radiotopia.